Now, the ant tib could be decelerating the foot a little bit. So like if you're in a single leg jump and you get that heel strike to keep you from just slapping down, that ant tib has to be strong enough to like kind of isometrically keep its angle so that you can roll instead of slap. However, we're talking about very, very beginner. We're talking about cases of rehab. We're talking about neurological issues where they don't have that control. Any like decent athlete who's just been active, who's been walking and running and jumping and cutting for a couple years, you're not going to have that problem of like slapping the floor. So that's not a legit concern for most people. But there are special cases where somebody's ant tib is that weak to where you would be slapping the floor and you can't decelerate the foot. But it's not decelerating the entire body weight. It's actually the opposite side of the joint that is going to be decelerating the entire body weight. So just the mechanisms that I was working off aren't true in general. And then I like to just go to real life. You know, I did more tib raises and tried them, and I didn't like it, and it got me sore. So it actually interfered with the amount of jumping that I could do, which then I think overall decreased the strength of the tibs because I wasn't training them the way that they actually need to perform in real life. And I talked to some other friends who were doing them, and I'm like, you know, everybody's hyped on it because it's something new. And then as time went on, 6 months goes by, a year goes by. Hey, how are you doing with those tib raises? I don't do them anymore because they weren't doing anything for me. Now, placebo is a heck of a drug. So if you see one of these videos and you truly believe it, don't let me get in the way of that. I hope you're not repeating it and posting about it and telling other people that this is the key to life. But you know, if you believe it, great. Because there's going to be people even in this comments, oh, it changed my life. I had cancer. It healed it. It's just completely transformed every aspect of my life. I was on my deathbed getting ready to die. I did 2 tib raises and now I'm back and now I'm in the NBA. Like that, those stories are going to come like anytime you talk about this stuff. But in the real world, when I actually talk to people, they're like, yeah, it didn't do anything for me. So again, not bad, not good, but highly overrated just because of the narratives on social media. And then the last thing that I'll say about this topic is there's over 10 muscles that start in the lower leg and cross through the ankle and act at the foot. The tib is, the anterior tib is one of those 10. And then there's even more intrinsic foot muscles. I think there's 29 or 30 muscles acting at the foot, and probably even more that we don't even fully understand and haven't identified. How are you equally training the other 29 muscles? And let's just say the muscles that cross the ankle. So how are you equally training the other 10? Because you're isolating the tibs several days a week. How are you isolating the other 9? And if you have an answer for that, do you have a life outside of this stuff? Like, how do you have the time to isolate all of those muscles? I think it would be impossible. And so how are you determining that the tib is that much more important than all of these other muscles? And if you are building anterior tibialis strength blindly with no like assessment, nobody said, hey, you have this specific deficiency, so you need to isolate this to bring it up to speed, and you're just blindly getting it stronger. How do you know that you're not getting that way stronger than all the other muscles? Because you're not paying attention to those. So when you look at it like that, you start to realize that, hey, regular good training, especially plyometrics, agility, playing sports, going on a hike on an uneven surface like our ancestors did. This is how they built all of these muscles equally, where I'm having to supinate and I'm having to pronate, I'm having to dorsiflex and I'm having to plantar flex. That trains all of them in the right ratios. And so we don't develop any imbalances. And we train all of them. It's built into movement already. So then on top of that, if we're going to isolate something, I think you would need to get a assessment where somebody's tests it and they're like, hey, your anterior tibialis is way weaker than all these other muscles. You should do these specific exercises to bring it up to speed. But to blindly just start doing it, I'm not as convinced that that's a great idea unless you do have the time to isolate the other 9 muscles equally. And by the way, I already know that some of the comments are going to say, yeah, but if you're already doing plantar flexion, you're doing calf raises, then it's going to be imbalanced. Your calves are going to be too strong for your anterior tibialis. And my answer to that is it's supposed to be. Like I said, 5, 6, 7 times your body weight in sprinting and jumping. And I didn't look up those exact stats. It depends on your level and what task you're doing, but it's way, way, way higher. And so it's supposed to be way stronger. You ever notice that you could calf raise a lot of weight and you can't anterior tib raise a lot of weight? There's a reason. The body is supposed to be imbalanced. You're supposed to be really strong in certain areas, and then other areas we're not quite as strong. So that idea that, well, the calves are getting too strong for the ant tib, it's supposed to be like that. Again, train the ant tib, that's fine. It's built into movement, so I don't isolate it, but you certainly can if you want to and you have the time. Just don't hype it up like it's some miracle muscle.